The year is 2022. In a continent where presidents cling to power like family heirlooms, a 34-year-old soldier walks into the presidential palace in fatigues, not to ask for permission, but to take back control. The captain didn't wait his turn. He didn't campaign. He didn't beg. He simply said enough. In the land of generals with golden epaulets and lifetime titles, he showed up in boots, no script, and one mission: to restore dignity. They called it a coup. But to the youth of Burkina Faso, it felt more like a reset button. He didn't arrive with a convoy. He arrived with conviction. And in a world still ruled by old men in tailored suits, one quiet revolutionary in a faded military cap lit a fire across Africa. This is not your typical head of state story. This is the rise of a leader who tweets like a student, fights like a soldier, and dreams like Sankara, but in HD. In a region where power often has gray hair and bad memory, Traore's youth wasn't a weakness, it was the weapon. At just 34, he was younger than most African ministers' children. Too young, they said, too green. But to millions of people in Burkina Faso, he was just right. Born in 1988, the year Sankara's dream was buried, Traore grew up watching the same movie on repeat. A country sold for scraps, a youth sold empty promises, an Africa always waiting for change, but never leading it. So when Traore stood before the nation in military fatigues, speaking softly but carrying a revolution, he didn't just represent change, he embodied it. He wasn't just fighting extremists in the Sahel. He was confronting something older and more dangerous: the lie that African youth must wait their turn. Burkina Faso's population, over 70% under 30. Unemployed, ignored, underestimated. Now, one of their own sat at the top, not to talk down, but to look them in the eye and say, "We're not the future, we're the now." This wasn't a generational gap. It was a generational uprising, disguised as a president. He doesn't wear a suit. He wears a symbol: the red beret, the camouflage fatigues, the gaze that says, "I've read Sankara, and I remember everything." To the West, he looks like a rebel with outdated fashion. To Africa's youth, he looks like hope dressed in legacy. Traore doesn't govern from a podium, he governs from a memory. Of Thomas Sankara riding a bicycle, of speeches that made empires sweat, of a country once fearless enough to rename itself Burkina Faso, the land of upright people. But this isn't cosplay. This is calculated. Every stitch of cloth, every silence in a speech, every tweet dripping with defiance, it's all deliberate. He doesn't say anti-imperialist. He lives it. French troops? Asked to leave. Gold contracts? Rethought. Sovereignty. Rewritten, not requested. In an age of curated selfies and puppet presidents, Traore is analog rebellion in a digital world. His aesthetic isn't modern, it's timeless. His politics aren't polite, they're poetic. And his message is clear.
You want to impose democracy by killing millions of people. That's dictatorship, that's not democracy. It can't be imposed. Those who call themselves Democrats. But look, we've seen scenes where people were prevented from entering assemblies. We've seen scenes where forces stormed into assemblies to force the deputies to pass legislation. We've seen scenes worse than that, where people kill their protesters, yet they call themselves Democrats, and we are labeled as coup plotters. If this is democracy, I repeat, we do not want this democracy. And when you often see the incompetent. They don't seek to understand what the word democracy really means. They just cling to the definition he gave imperialism, and they start talking of democracy without really knowing the foundation. That's incompetence. We need to seek knowledge, to understand, to look at the world in order to redefine democracy the way we want it in Africa.
Africa doesn't need new chains with better Wi-Fi. We need freedom, and we'll speak it in our own language. He doesn't just talk like Sankara. He moves like prophecy. But here's the hard truth about every revolution that wears a beret. Symbols inspire, power tests, and now the young general who rose like a storm must govern like a statesman. Behind the romantic glow of Pan-African pride lies a reality more stubborn than empire. Poverty, jihadism, fragile institutions, fractured trust. Yes, Traore talks to the youth like a brother. But some critics whisper, he's acting more like a father who doesn't want to give up the keys. No timeline for elections. Independent press silenced. Dissenters watched. Revolution eats its children, they say. And Africa has seen too many dinners. So the question isn't just can Traore lead? It's, can he build? Without becoming the very strongman he swore to replace. The Sankara flame burns bright. But if it isn't tended with justice, humility, and vision, it becomes smoke. Still, something about him feels different. Maybe it's his silence in rooms full of noise. Maybe it's that he doesn't lecture, he listens. Maybe, just maybe, he's writing a new chapter where youth isn't just a prop, but a promise. So Africa watches, not for another idol, but for a leader who doesn't just raise fists, but raises futures. Because when the dust settles and the drums quiet down, the question won't be, did he rise? It will be, did he change anything? If you made it this far, you already know. This isn't just about Burkina Faso. It's about us, about you, about Africa's next chapter. So tell me in the comments, is Ibrahim Traoré the change Africa needs, or just another soldier in a long line of uniforms? Subscribe to BMN Global, because this is where the continent speaks for itself. Let's write this new era together.